men often are less often diagnosed with depression, for example, than women. And it's not that men necessarily are, less often suffer from depression, but they self-medicate with alcohol. And for me, this is quite personal, and going into this field, into this area, really got to me because 3 years ago, my cousin passed away on the effects of alcoholism, and he was 39 years old. My father had trouble with alcohol. My grandfather had trouble with alcohol. Now, again, I have an Indian background, and my grandparents left India and came to England. And so there's a whole big host of mental health issues going on underneath there. But I remember when I told my dad I wanted to study psychology, he asked me, why do you want to study to become a quack? And this is maybe a very Southeast Asian idea, but also maybe a bit of a generational idea, where probably even my Western grandparents would have not had much understanding of why psychology could be important, or that mental health issues are real. Yes. So the whole issue is that men are more often suffering from alcohol-related coping mechanisms. And there are many reasons behind that, and we'll look at that further down. And then this is a bit of an overview that also stigma adds to the challenge. That, like I said, my dad thought psychology is quackery. And so the whole objective of this hopefully short presentation is that how chronic stress, procrastination, and stigma contribute to self-medication, and that for all men. So first, let's look at what is self-medication, and that is really using alcohol to alleviate the whole emotional distress that men are suffering from, and instead of seeking professional help, meaning that can be something small like a drink here and a drink there when you feel low, going on to drinking regularly and developing alcohol dependence or alcohol use disorder in order to be able to cope with emotional distress. The numbers are quite conflicting, so it's somewhere between 20 to 50% of men with depression and anxiety self-medicate with alcohol. But all those men can only be asked if they are in treatment for alcohol use disorder, and only then they can be asked. And there are some studies I found that hint towards that often it's not a very conscious thing. They know they don't feel well, but they're not aware of what the symptoms mean. And I think this is one of the big things going on there. And then the whole idea, why alcohol? I mean, there's so many other drugs, and in today's world, we also have, as some of you have mentioned before, we have social media that we can self-medicate with. We have many ways to medicate, but alcohol is somewhere different because it has this anxiolytic effect, which means it kind of it takes away those symptoms of depression and anxiety. It takes the pain away in those moments. And it feels, when people drink, they feel like it reduces their worry and their stress and their distress. And most of all, it's very socially acceptable and very easy to obtain. We moved to Germany last year from Switzerland, and we moved into a building with 4 apartments. And we have, apart from our own apartment, we have like shared areas in the building. And one is an additional shared kitchen in the basement. And we have our own beer pump, like very Bavarian beer pump. And people in the building we live in, they drink a lot and they drink regularly. Is that alcoholism or not is a whole different thing. But drinking together is very socially acceptable, and it's been very much normalized to drink regularly. And then you have this whole idea of chronic stress, and I forgot, somebody mentioned that today too. You have this whole, and that is a field that I've been a little deeper in, this whole idea of chronic low-level stress, which many of us totally underestimate the effects it has, and you will see in the end why. But stress, of course, we all know what stress does. You have the glucocorticoids, you have the cortisol levels, you have it increases anxiety and depressive symptoms. It causes our brains not to function quite as well as they normally do. There is a whole big host of things it does. But what else it does, we like to drink alcohol in order to take the edge off a little, but also that alcohol consumption worsens the whole stress-related mental health issues. And this is the whole cycle that we're going into, is that we then have not only stress and we have mental health issues, but then we have a procrastination of health-seeking behavior. So we don't do the thing that would actually help us in order to get better. So people in this cycle, they would not feel good, they would drink, they would procrastinate help-seeking behavior, and then you have this whole cycle that just gets worse and worse. And to it, we have then this whole topic that we've had today with stigma and social pressures, and that men are still socialized to suppress emotional vulnerability. You can't just go out and say, I feel really bad. This is one of the things I've experienced a lot in Switzerland working as a therapist, where in Switzerland you have this underlying idea that if it's not a broken leg, something that's visible, you're not sick. So anything that is not visible, again, like you broke your leg in skiing, you're not sick. And this is one of the reasons why burnout levels in Switzerland are sky high. And even kids coming basically from university at the age of 23, 24 already are dealing with burnout because this pressure is so big and you're not really allowed to seek help. Obviously, this has changed in recent years. And it is getting better, but it's still very prevalent, this idea. So this whole idea of stigma obviously deters many men of health seeking. And this is something I really love, the talk about poetry, because it's allowing this idea of I'm allowed to show emotions, I'm allowed to talk about those things. Very beautiful. And then adding to it that somebody else mentioned that too, about, oh, we used to go out to the pub and talk about feelings. And today, many times it is just going out and getting drunk. I know here in Germany, we had trouble with this whole binge drinking thing where they would have a flat rate to totally get completely wasted. And this is also obviously an outlet for stress, but it goes down this whole road of alcohol increasing mental health issues. And we again go back into the cycle that where people, and I've worked in homeless shelters, and I can see the pattern of how those men really ended up there with this whole idea of not being able to seek for help because they didn't know they had troubles. And it just goes down this cycle that I'm showing here. So you have this whole idea of self-medication, they procrastinate seeking help, they have this whole chronic stress thing going on, and it just goes on and on and on. And this obviously drastically increases their mental health issues. And I think without treatment, it's very hard to get out of this. And then I guess I'm way shorter than I planned to be, and I hope we get some discussion about it or something we can do together. This is this whole chronic stress thing. We often don't know. It's like this whole frog in water idea, that is, when you put the frog into the boiling water, he'll notice that he's boiled. But the way we live today, we don't notice that the water is getting hotter and hotter and that we're boiling. We don't notice how we get worse and worse. We don't notice how, as Inder said so nicely before with the whole nutrition, we don't notice that our nutrition is down to dogs, that we're dealing with mental health issues and we're self-medicating with alcohol, we're self-medicating with social media, with Netflix binges, we self-medicate with not sleeping enough because we watch Netflix all night. And we have this whole cycle going on which leads to more and more mental health issues, then you're not even able to talk about your mental health issues because it's not a broken leg, and because you're not allowed to say, hey, I'm really suffering inside, and you need to be the strong guy, and you need to stand up, and you cannot. And then all that's left is self-medicating with, again, social media, with alcohol, with even harder drugs. And we have a big problem with harder drugs. And then, of course, a lot of the whole neurodiversity issue that Howard talked about, it's often not even diagnosed because it's somewhere along the spectrum. And then we have all of this coming together into this one lump, is where alcohol is a problem and we're not allowed to talk about it. That's something my husband, who does not drink alcohol, said. He had a business meet. He works for a British company, and he said, it's, if you don't drink at those meetings and get totally wasted, you don't belong into the group. Where he said he got alcohol-free beer to just hold on to the beer so it looks like he's drinking like all the others. And then he said the pub closes at 11, and so they need to get drunk quickly because the pub closes at 11. And it's, we have this cycle of this societal pressure of needing to drink, not realizing it feeds into this whole mental health issues that we have, adding to it that in the end, if we do seek help, and I know it's the same in the UK as here in Germany, you're not even able to get help because the psychologists and the psychiatrists are booked out for the next basically year, if at all. So I know I've been probably way too short, but I was really looking at all your amazing speeches, going very deep into it. And I wasn't sure that at this time of the day, with already very much dwindling numbers, many of you would be able to follow into it if we would go too deep into the science of it. But I really loved all of the things all of you said, and it all goes back into the same thing, is we need to open a dialogue that, hey, there are mental health issues and it's not your fault. And taking a little bit of a biological model here is, and I think the biological model is very helpful in explaining to people, especially to like my dad's generation, who would say that psychology is quackery, that we say, look, you know, there is a malfunction in dopamine, there's a malfunction in serotonin. Maybe, you know, too much social media, you get integrity issues in white matter and in gray matter. There's so many things going on that that we can talk about to even get a hold of people that would not be open to seeing, like, hey, there are psychological issues underlying. But it all feeds back into this one thing, is we know we have a mental health crisis at the moment, and there are so many different paths we can take to help people get out of it. And I think one of the first steps we need to do is to create this awareness, like, hey, it's okay to have mental health issues, and it's okay to say, yes, I have a problem. But it's also, I think, a big issue is in awareness, that many of us are not aware that we have a mental health issue. And on my last slide, yes, so let me share this here. And I would invite you to do that together with me, because just yesterday I did this whole thing again, and it's the Life Change Index. If you would like to have the file, let me know, I'll send it to you. And it gives you scores. It's only a one-page thing, and on the second page it will tell us how to scale it. But maybe open your calculator. If you're not great at mental math, open your calculator on your phone and just go ahead. So it starts with the big things, with death of spouse. And I will just be quiet for a moment and let you all you know, calculate those things together. And I will, or I can maybe make this smaller that you can see the, I don't know if you can still see the numbers, but just maybe take note of those things you've experienced in the past year. It's for the past 12 months. Maybe you'd give me a short wave or just say something when you're done.